welcome everyone to the fourth volume of the Songwriter Sessions here with Wilson Valley Mercantile. Today we have Keith Michael Kallina and our host Ely Buck Davis. Y'all enjoy. All right, Keith and Ely, thank y'all for joining me today, and we'll just jump right in and start asking some questions here. This is the fourth version of our songwriter session in anticipation for the next songwriter roundup here at Wilson Valley Mercantile on the 17th of July. So thank you all for being here. Keith, I'm just going to jump right in and ask you, tell us, you've been around music a lot, from classic rock to country. How did that immersion in music shape your path into songwriting and performing? And what kind of sound would you say defines you today?
Well, yeah, I saw that that was in the questions that you were going to ask. I guess I'm pretty sure I said that at some point in some bio or something. And I'm just a country boy that's a rock and roller at heart. So I think that's kind of why I put it that way. But I think the best way I can explain it was like I was born 1988. So if you do the math on that, man, I was growing up through like the 90s country thing. And 90s country was huge for me. All of the, Garth Brooks, George Strait, Alan Jackson. Man, it felt like anytime, we went and did something or got in the car, that stuff was on the radio, I grew up in a small town, Nada, Texas, but there's like a ton of little communities surrounding Nada, like El Campo, Tayton, Columbus, Altair, Sheridan, Eagle Lake. So all these little communities, and it felt like, when I was a little kid, it was like every other weekend we were going to a wedding or we were going to a birthday party or we were going to something somewhere, and that 90s country was getting played over a big PA system. And like it's just ingrained in me. Now the rock and roll stuff was like my dad was just casual amateur guitar player, but he knew how to chunk out some AC/DC, some Boston, Kansas, stuff like that. I remember him playing, just riffs. He'd sit down and play these sort of familiar songs, and then we'd listen to them, and it's like, okay, he's playing what's on the record. And that was just kind of like, you're talking about just being around it my whole life. That was the immersion early on. And it's funny because Dad still plays those same riffs 30 years later. He hadn't learned anything new.
Well, if something works, there's no reason to change it.
Yeah.
That's right. So I think that's where the country and the rock and roll kind of just came together. And a lot of what I do with the band with Etta Place is blues-based sort of rock. And like I said, I'm a Texas country boy, so I can't get away from that. It's still in me. It still comes out. But a lot of the songwriter stuff that I do is just kind of, acoustic guitar and try to, turn a phrase. So, I feel like a little bit, get to have one foot in each world, which is kind of the way I like it, I just get to do whatever I feel like most of the time.
Would you consider yourself a little folky as well? Because when I think of you acoustically, performing at songwriter nights and things, I just feel like you're the epitome of a traveling folky. Anytime I see you somewhere, we're playing solo acoustic, and then the instrumentation is what changes you into this rock and roller. When I see you with a full band, I feel like your vocal range goes up a little bit more and a little more experimental, and just it sounds great. But when I see you acoustically, I'm like, you're a folky, which is kind of country and rock as well, but
yeah,
just my opinion.
Yeah,
as a band.
No, I think, gosh, all this talking about myself, it makes me uncomfortable, but that's what we're here for.
Well, are you influenced by folk as well? I guess is the way I should have.
For sure. Yeah, and I get what you're saying, and I think it comes from, I figured out about 10 years ago that music was kind of a cheat code for life. Like, I started going out and playing at bars and breweries and stuff, and people were giving me money, and I was like, well, this is crazy. Like, I do this for free. Like, I do this in my room. I do this on the front porch with my friends. But if I go sit in a bar and do it, I walk away with money. I remember just being like, well, maybe like that's my cheat code. That's how I don't have to actually get a real job. And so I've kind of tried to refine that to just be entertaining. And I think that's what the folk thing comes from that, because like the guys that I look at that sit up there with an acoustic guitar and tell stories and say something clever in a song, those are the guys that are entertaining to me. So, I just see the value in it. and I've tried to kind of cultivate that. And I think it's kind of that combination of just taking a leap of faith that like this music stuff will work out, and trying to like draw from my influences and people that have gone before me and that have done it really well, you know. So yeah, there's definitely a folk influence in there. That's the folk thing, right?
Yeah.
I
I
want
think it's also the sound of being genuine too, I think. You know, if you got a little folksy in you, it's just
Yeah.
because you're genuine. You're not putting on a show or anything. So I don't
So
mean to keep blowing smoke, but
Yeah, no. I mean, that's it, man.
I want
talking
to
to you.
interject one thing real quick and just rewind. You said, have a real job. I often catch myself, so, farmer and rancher, then the distillery and everything else that came with the distillery. I often say, whenever I had a real job, or I've tried to quit doing that, because all these other things, they're still a real job. They're just not a normal job as far as society
Yeah.
is concerned.
Yeah.
So, just don't sell yourself short on a real job versus being a mission.
Well, the way I look at it is, every job has its pros and cons, and at the end of the day, somebody's got to do that job. So, whether it be a musician that has to stay away from their family and travel a lot and do kind of strange hours and things, drive back at 3 o'clock in the morning, that's not everybody's cup of tea. They all think it's, everything's, flowers and roses, but it's like, sometimes it's rough too, but someone's got to do it. Someone's got to keep making music. Someone's got to keep creating new songs and performing. So just like someone has to run a distillery, someone has to farm. It's not always the, easiest thing to do, but someone's got to do it. And I think we were all called to do what we're doing.
Yeah. Well, and there's that old cliche thing too. It's like love what you do and you never work. And I heard for a long time people would tell me, just keep doing what you enjoy and the money will come. And I've been circling this idea. I'm pretty sure there's a song here, Ely. But I've been circling this idea of like, hey, I'm just willing to meet the money halfway at this point. Like, it doesn't have to come all the way to me. Like, I'll go meet you.
We may have to cut this part out. This is just gonna be a me and you thing. We'll get this written out.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man.
Okay.
And and let me just finish this thought, John, because that's the whole
Go ahead,
thing
man.
is, and Ely, what you were saying about being authentic, it's like pulling those threads when they reveal themselves of like, how do I take bits and pieces of my life and put it into a song and like put it on display in a genuine way. And I feel like that's what I love about it. That's like that search to find the next song.
Yeah.
And then, like have my stuff together enough to be able to deliver it. Because sometimes, man, I'll get these ideas and I'm like, man, I know there's something there, but if I just can't quite get it where I want it, it'll never see the light of day. So that's the challenge there.
Yeah.
Sure. So you mentioned Etta Place earlier. Tell us about that concept and how you built the band around the legend and how you tie that into your music.
Okay. So Etta Place was an outlaw that ran around with Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. She was a female in a gang of outlaw, men, which I think that gives her a certain I don't know if we can say badass. If we can't say badass, you can edit it out. She was a badass, if you ask me.
I'm probably not going to edit that out.
So, I kind of just became aware of the historical character, and then I started digging into like the legend. And, one of the things that I really thought was cool was like nobody really knows where she came from. Nobody knows what happened to her. But she was a real life person who like lived this outlandish outlaw life. And so I really did sit with that concept for a couple years before I made the first record. And I made it with studio musicians out in Wimberley when Yellow Dog Studios was still out there. And I had this collection of songs that I was like, all these songs are in line with the themes of, this concept of Etta Place, which is like an outlaw, kind of like this romantic sort of, doing things her way and getting involved with these outlaws that she was running around with and robbing people and but also, just mostly just, they all could come back around and be related to those concepts. So I had the songs, I showed up out at Yellow Dog, Casey Johns engineered it and played bass. Phil Hook played the drums, and Dave played a lot of the guitars and did the production. And man, I learned so much making that record, seeing how those guys operate. Really enjoyed that creative process. So that was 2001, and that was still like wonky times as far as the world was concerned. And then from there, I had to put a band together and like go take the songs out on the road. And I tried to hire a promoter, and that went kind of sideways. Just learning business stuff as you go. But here we are a few years later, and I've got a good band behind the project. We recorded another record earlier this year that we're in the process of finishing the mixing. And we're going to take another stab at, releasing it through, what I would call professional channels, like try to like actually do some promotion and some PR. Ely, I know you have a little bit of experience with this. We've chatted about this stuff before because you could real easily just put it out on all the streaming services and say on Facebook, hey, we got a new record. But ideally, I'd like this thing to launch off to where we can, play some bigger shows in front of some bigger audiences, get the attention of some people that can help us, scale it, just scale the whole thing. As much as I love playing for a dozen people in a dive bar, I'd rather play for 1,500 in a, at a festival or something. It's making the music is the fun part, and then there's the other part of, it's not that it's not fun, it's not what I'm used to, like learning how to go through those channels and do the promotion and all that stuff. So I can't remember what the question was anymore.
I think you covered it well enough.
When you get to those 15,000 people, just remember me, and I'll come open up for you.
Yeah, man. We'll do a dual bill.
Well, so, I would say, I know I've heard Keith cover. I don't remember what song it was, but cover one of your songs before.
Oh, I've heard about that as well.
Yeah, man.
That's one of the best compliments. A best compliment a songwriter can get is to have another fellow songwriter play it. I really appreciate that, by the way.
Of course, dude, I am one of your biggest fans, whether you know it or not. Man, I show like anybody who is into songwriting that I'm like in orbit with. I'm like, do you know about Ely Buck Davis? Because if you don't, you should.
They're like, screw that guy.
No, man.
Careful, you'll give Ely a big head. We don't need that.
Yeah. No, there's a few of your songs that I absolutely adore, and the thing that I've like, they're very personal to you because they come from your life. And so the one that I feel most comfortable covering is like It Hit Me First, because like I can identify with just about everything in that song. So
When I play that one, I try to tell people it's kind of my ode. I did it by accident, but it's my ode to the songwriter lifestyle, about leaving home and kind of dealing with life on the road,
Yeah. And
just part of
you
it.
hit the nail on the head. That's why I enjoy playing it, And it's got that cool little lick on that D shape.
Now I'm really flattered. Someone said I had a lick. Well, let's move on.
My.
We're not talking about me.
I do want to throw one other talking about songs that we like. I know it's not necessarily an overly serious song, but I do love your song request song, Keith, which I'm sure.
Oh yeah,
I've told you
I
that
do
before.
too. That hits the nail on the head too.
Well, I wrote that out of necessity, man. About the millionth time you have somebody walk up to you on stage and ask for a song that either you don't know or don't want to play, you got to have something to pull out of the pocket,
Yeah.
And that goes back to that folk stuff, man, where it's like, at some point I could, it's like chasing your tail trying to learn every song that everybody wants to hear. But if I've got something kind of clever and cheeky that I can pull out of the bag and say, well, no, I'm not going to do your cover song, but here's one that I wrote, and maybe get a smile. Yeah. If I get a smile, it's good. Usually I can. Sometimes they just wanted to hear their song, and that's fine.
Yeah, that's how it is. So, well, let's transition to one more question here, and then we can wrap it up after that. So, as you're touring both solo and with Etta Place, what do you find most fulfilling about performing your music? And how does your approach change when you're playing acoustically versus playing with full band?
Okay, fulfilling. So I think as long as I'm staying in gratitude, man, like I'm gonna be in good shape because I really enjoy making music. It's just a matter of doing all the stuff that goes with it that allows me to keep making music. I realize that not everybody gets to do what I do. So I work really hard to make sure that I do it at the highest level. Doesn't always happen, but sometimes the stars align and I get a great night where everybody's feeling good and the crowd's digging it, and it's like there's like a little bit of an element of magic there, because if you think about it, all we're really doing, we're hitting wood and metal and making it vibrate, and we're yelling into this microphone and making more vibrations. It's creating something that wouldn't be there otherwise, and then it's gone in a moment. It's
Yeah.
And so when everything lines up and all that, the magic happens, that's awesome. There's a lot of nights where it's more work than magic, and that's okay too. But if I'm staying grateful, man, it's like it's just an extension of like getting to do what brings me joy. So I'm just gonna keep trying to do that.
That sounds like last week, or the last Songwriter Sessions, we talked to Mason Mark, and that kind of sounds a little bit like his answer. So if you had never met Mason, he's a pretty talented cat.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
As Ely put it, he can sure belt.
I think you are from the same area, if I'm not mistaken.
For sure, I've done some stuff with Mason. I'm a fan of his as well, man.
Yeah.
He's great.
So I guess I fed well ago when I said one final question. I really want to wrap it up with what you mentioned. New album. When's that coming, or do you know yet?
We recorded it in December, and then we have had a heck of a time getting it mixed down. We actually ended up taking it back to Dave at Yellow Dog to finish the mixing, and we've got one little thing that we've got to fix, but we just want to get it right before we put it out. And without getting too into the weeds with it, we want to make sure everything's lined up to give it a good, proper release. We don't even have any artwork yet, so it's, I'll play you some tracks if you want to hear them, man, when I'm out there next week.
All right.
Oh, I'd like to hear them.
Would love to hear them.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to tell folks before we wrap up?
Well, just go support Wilson Valley Mercantile, man. This is so cool that
Thank you.
John's doing this, and I love doing stuff like this, man. It's like getting an opportunity to just kind of cut it up and talk about stuff, just support local, like go spend some money.
I was joking around with Erica. We needed to run a special on Facebook and tell people, come to Wilson Valley and buy something, and keep having Wilson Valley to come to.
Yes.
That's the special.
Yeah.
That's it. And I think people know it too. It's like if you don't go out and support these places, they're not going to be there forever if it's unsustainable. And that's the same with the music and your artist and your favorite, whatever. But that's the way of the world, and we're out here trying to carve a path. So if anybody's listening, hello, thank you for the support, and we'll see you out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
See you on the 17th.
July
17th is the next roundup. And Ely, you got anything else you want to share with folks?
No, I think that Keith pretty much said it for me. I was going to kind of say the same thing. Come out and support us. And Keith, are you going to have anything new songs you're going to throw out there?
Yeah, I got always got some new stuff, man.
Okay.
Ely, are you
always
going to have
maybe-
any new songs you're going to throw out
I
there?
know you were going to ask that. Keith always makes me feel bad, man. I've been in a little dry spell, but I'm working on it. I got a lot of ideas, just unfinished,
Yeah, they're slow cooking.
So we're getting there.
I like that. All right. Well, thank you. I'm going to stop the recording now.
All right.